Okay, we are going to talk about breast pumps. Yay! And there's a difference. There's manual pumps, there's electric pumps, there's hospital grade pumps. It's just so overwhelming. We're going to go through each one and kind of talk about the difference. So the first question I get is, how much food does my baby need? So in the back of the Smart Parents Guide to Feeding Your Baby, also on infantassist.com, you will find a baby feeding requirements chart. So this takes into account how much a baby needs every feed and every 24 hours in order to gain 1 ounce per day. So it takes into account the calories a baby needs to survive and then how much food on top of that they need to gain that 1 ounce per day. Plain and simple, a baby that's born 5 pounds needs 13 ounces of milk every 24 hours. That would break down to 1.6 ounces of milk per feeding 8 times a day. Once a baby reaches 12 pounds, and that's 12 pounds or 25 pounds, the most food they need is 32 ounces every 24 hours. That would be 4 ounces feeding 8 times a day. So that's what a typical milk supply is. So if you've ever heard someone, oh, I pumped 12 ounces, they're either doing something wrong or not telling the truth, because an average milk supply is 4 ounces between both breasts. One breast always makes more than the other. 75% of women make double the milk in their right breast as their left. We have no idea why, but you're gonna get on average between both breasts about 4 ounces. Milk is tied to your sleep. You get a surge of prolactin when you sleep. So you're gonna make the most amount of milk first thing in the morning, and then it's gonna slow down throughout the day. So what is the difference between these pumps? This is a manual pump. This is an electric pump. This one in particular is a hospital grade pump, a Symphony. What's the difference between hospital grade and a regular electric pump? It's basically the chance of cross-contamination. Regular electric breast pump, if you were to pump and lean over, milk can go into the tubing and get into the pump. So, for example, if someone had hepatitis, they can contaminate that pump with hepatitis, and if they were to sell it, there's a possibility of that bodily fluid, going to the next person. So, according to the FDA, a hospital grade electric pump has membranes and protections so that this pump can be used by many different people. You just need a different kit. There's no way for any fluid to get inside of a hospital grade pump. A consumer-based pump is like a razor. It's considered a single user product by the FDA, and it can't be used by multiple people. These pumps, the hospital grade pumps, you can rent them or buy them. The real difference is the strength and the sound. So what are the pros and cons? Oxytocin, that love hormone, the hormone that you're building the receptor sites in the brain, the hormone that shoots the milk out. I have a fun fact for you. It's the only hormone in the body you control with your brain. So you can stop a milk ejection reflex with your brain. You can actually sit there and pump and not get anything. If you're in pain, if you're stressed, I've seen it happen, especially when women are engorged. So a manual pump is you. So if you're super engorged, you have a breast infection, you're pumping with an electric pump, you're not getting any milk out, guess what? You are going to have more success with a manual pump than an electric pump, because you control the milk ejection reflex with your brain. So this Haka pump, you'd place it on the nipple and you just do the work. That's all it is, you squeezing. An electric pump does this work for you. It's that simple. There is no benefit, one is definitely not better than the other. It's all personal preference. So manual pump, you're just gonna have to, build those hand muscles when you pump, but great for someone that's, say, replacing one feeding a day with a bottle. If you have a baby that's in the NICU and, you want the best pump you can get, you're gonna want to rent a hospital grade pump. This is my favorite, the Symphony. And again, this can be rented because it can't transfer bodily fluid from person to person, but it's generally the same as the consumer-based pump. The real difference is how loud it is. So I have the Symphony on right now, and as you can hear, you basically don't hear anything. The regular consumer-based pumps are a lot louder, so it all depends on personal preference. If your husband is complaining that you're waking him up when you pump, might be worth the investment to rent one of these. But again, it's not necessary to use a hospital grade pump unless you are separated from your baby. So if your baby is in the NICU, you want the best. You want a hospital grade pump. If you're pumping just a few times a day, going back to work, a regular consumer-based pump is perfect. Okay, so they all boil down to the same type of equipment. The manual pump, it's basically just a bottle that's attached, and you would pour this milk into a bottle. Pumps, consumer-based pumps or hospital-grade pumps, they all work off a membrane. This little teeny tiny white membrane controls all the suction for the pump. So, very important, regardless of what pump manufacturer you have, to check these little membranes and make sure that they're not torn, because you could have a $2,000 pump, and if this little tiny membrane is torn, guess what? The pump's not gonna work. So, membrane, very important. So I'm gonna put it back. The hospital grade pump, the main difference is these large membranes. So the Symphony pump, again, has these two extra large membranes that you place inside. I can't even tell you how many phone calls I got about Symphonies because I rented hundreds of them. The Symphony pump has a plug in the back and then a plug that goes into the wall. So if this plug is not plugged in, it will not work. So you have to plug it in the back here and into the wall. Sounds silly, but once you have a baby and you're tired, sometimes things just need to be explained in a little more detail. So you have the actual pump and then you have the pump parts. So this is called a flange. This is a connector. This is the valve and the membrane. This is the bottle. Plain and simple, all universal for every pump, regardless of the manufacturer. So, the one thing I want to point out are these, the flanges. They come in different sizes. This little hole right here is designed to suck in the areola, but none of the nipple is supposed to rub against the side. That's why it's sold in different sizes. So it all depends on how big your nipple is. And again, I know we don't spend a lot of time looking at our nipples, but if you're pregnant, feel free to look at them right now and look. hey, is my nipple the size of a dime, the size of a nickel, or the size of a quarter? Because that will depend on the flange size. So your areola is going to be sucked into the flange, and that's how the milk ejects. So that's why you would have success with a hand pump and not an electric pump with oxytocin, because breastfeeding is compression, pumping is suction. It's actually sucking in the areola, and that's what makes the milk come out. So when you put the baby on the breast, the oxytocin releases automatically. It doesn't matter. If you're pumping, you control the hormone with your brain. So there's tricks that we're going to talk about if you're having difficulty pumping. So flange size, look at your nipple, see how big your nipple is. You can go bigger. If the areola is being sucked in, that's normal. If your nipple is rubbing and you feel pain, you gotta get a bigger size. Sometimes bigger the better. I am a huge fan of things that I want to eat. So lanolin is oil from lamb's wool. Some of them do contain pesticides. So if you're going to use any sort of kind of lubricant, I love coconut oil. It's inexpensive, works great. And since you're taking skin and it's rubbing against plastic, the best thing to do is to lubricate your areolas with some coconut oil before you start pumping. So we're getting ready to go. Grab a little bit of coconut oil, lubricate, not the actual nipple, but the areolas. Get everything ready. You're gonna put valve and membrane right here. Screw the bottle on, and then we're gonna start pumping. The hospital grade pumps, it doesn't matter if you pump one or both, the pump is still gonna work. A consumer-based pump, if you wanna pump just one side, there's gonna be a little nozzle on the front where both tubes come out, and you're gonna have to plug up one. So the suction just goes for one side, if that makes sense. So here's a perfect example of difficulty, breast infection. Mom's got so much milk, in so much pain, putting a pump on, nothing's coming out. Guess what you can do? You can put the baby on one side, that way the oxytocin will release on its own, and pump the other side, and you will guaranteed have a successful pumping session, because the oxytocin is controlled by the brain, or you put the baby near you and you're just going to start leaking. That's why if you hear a baby cry, you start leaking. It releases oxytocin. So in terms of sanitation, fresh breast milk is good sitting out. I like to do the 5, 5, and 5 rule. 5 hours out on the counter without any refrigeration, 5 days in the fridge, 5 months in the freezer. Those are very conservative numbers. Really, because 1 drop of breast milk has 1 million living white blood cells, you can pump and leave milk out sitting on the counter for 10 hours. If any bacteria grows, the white blood cells eat the bacteria. So the great thing is, what you could do is pump and then go, hey honey, I'm going to bed. And you look at your baby feeding requirements chart, you see how much milk the baby needs, and then you leave the milk out and go, good night, I'm gonna go sleep a 5-hour stretch. You do the next feed. So using the baby feeding requirements chart is key. All right, you have problems. You don't know what's going on. Your pump's not working. You checked the membrane. Most of the breastfeeding stores, or you can even purchase one. This is a gauge that tests the suction of the pump. The hospital grade pump, again, very strong. It's designed, if you're separated from your baby, to give you the best pumping experience and develop a milk supply as if the baby was on the breast. The Medial pumps, this is why I like them. It's a two-phase technology. So when you first turn on a pump, a Medial pump, it starts fast. It's kind of like a baby. Then automatically, after about a minute, it switches to the expression phase. Longer, more drawn out. This is when the milk comes out, after the milk ejection reflex. So the stimulation phase, when you first turn it on, fast, rapid, kind of like a baby. And then it goes to longer, drawn out. This is where we get the milk out. So guess what? You can make pumping extremely efficient by bypassing that phase if you want to. So if you have a 15-minute break at work and you've got to get the milk out fast, you can turn on the pump. Once the milk starts coming out, you can hit the letdown button and go straight to the expression phase, and you should be done in 5 minutes or less. If you grab and squeeze the breast, that's another way to help get the milk out. So be on top of it. Don't just sit there and look at your phone. Really get in there and grab and squeeze. So all humans are born with 6 nipples. We started with one here, and one here. So this is your mammary ridge. Some women keep one of their nipples in their armpits. Some of you have kind of a baseball in your armpit and you're wondering what's going on. Some of you don't, but this is the general area of your mammary ridge. So you can squeeze your armpit, your breasts, give yourself a little massage. Warm helps facilitate the letdown, but it's all controlled with your brain. So when you pump, you actually have to sit and think about your baby and think about holding your baby and being with your baby. And that will help you with a letdown. It's amazing, but it's true. You can look at pictures of your baby, whatever it takes to stimulate that letdown. Okay, so I am just gonna take a regular bra. I just wanna show you guys some inexpensive ways to make your life easier. So they sell bras specifically for pumping, and they're kind of expensive. So I'm just gonna take my normal bra and just show you that you don't need to buy the fancy one. What you can do, regular bra, that's it. We already, with just a regular plain old bra, just made a hands-free pump bra. It's that simple. So lubricate, put the flanges on, then you can just attach these, hit go, and you're done. Now, once the milk lets down, then you play on your phone, do some breast compressions, but typically pumping should not take longer than 15 minutes. So to recap, oxytocin is the hormone that shoots the breast milk out. It's the only hormone controlled by the brain. You can stop the milk ejection reflex when you're pumping, but when you're breastfeeding, it's impossible to stop the milk ejection reflex. It's gonna happen regardless. So if you're having difficulty getting milk out, you can always put the baby on one side and pump the other, and regardless of how engorged you are, you are going to have a milk rejection reflex.